How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Good to see you.
Good. Is the mic working? Okay.
I think so. I might just be recording us as well for the videos after the fact.
All right. Well, first off, before you even ask me a question, my opening remark, since this is a little bit of advice, is it's okay to have a cheat sheet. I use them in board meetings. I use them in all hands meetings.
It's all good.
And then if you get bought by Google, go ahead and get a sponsorship deal. So this session's brought to you by Buy5.
I love it.
Just kidding, Google. I know it's on camera.
So speaking of Google, tell us about it. I mean, how are you feeling? Some big news, right?
Yeah. I've been at Looker 6 years, the 7 years, so it's been a cool journey. It's super exciting because in our landscape, we partner up with the major cloud databases, the Redshifts and the Auroras from Amazon, the Snowflakes, the Google BigQueries. So on the one hand, we have partnerships with all of these different folks, and the great thing is that Google has a complete multi-cloud, multi-database environment. I actually was at another company that Thomas Kurian bought back at Oracle, Endeca, where Endeca was an e-commerce platform on top of 3 different e-commerce platforms, IBM WebSphere, SAP Hybris, and Oracle ATG, and they did the same thing. They allowed us to sell on all the platforms, and so that's what we're going to continue to do. So in answer to your question, it's super exciting because it lets us accelerate the vision of Looker and really just double down on the brand and awareness and the market reach. So it's just, we already have 350 joint customers. It's going to be a great partnership.
That's awesome. Well, we're happy for you. Obviously been with you since you were, I think, 5 million or so of ARR, and now obviously an order of magnitude or more than that or more. But maybe take a step back. When did you join Looker? You said about 6 years ago, but what did the kind of sales organization look like at that time? And maybe talk to us high level about some of the evolving characteristics of it up until now.
Okay. Yeah. The sales organization was Keenan Rice, VP of Marketing, and Lloyd Tabb, founder. So I was the 15th employee. So they did an amazing job of getting our first 30 customers. We're up around 1,800, 1,900 customers now. So that was the organization.
Yeah.
And so I got the opportunity to come in and watch Keenan do his amazing stuff, do a sales discovery call, a demo, and try and close for a free trial all at the same time. So the mission right off the bat was to hire a sales team, and an interesting point was from day one, we went for a standpoint of going both enterprise and SMB mid-market. So we hired 4 sales reps, 2 what we called outside, San Francisco and New York, and then 2 that we called inside in Santa Cruz. And the goal of that was, so it was July 2013 when I started. We hired those people in the first 3 months. And then the whole idea was to try and codify a repeatable sales process that we could make these folks successful. And so a big lesson for us was we did not jump in and start hiring the next 4 salespeople until we had proven that these people could be successful. It was about 5-6 months that we got all of them cranking, selling, and then starting April 1st of 2014, we went through a cadence of hiring 4 at a time. Yeah. Similar kind of thing. Our SMB and mid-market stuff was bigger in the early days, so it'd be 3 inside, 1 outside, and then from there we just went 4, 4, 4 and kept going until then it was 5, 5, 5, 6, 6, 6, all of that kind of stuff.
Was that the key to managing that sort of dual strategy early on? I mean, one of the things I've seen in some of the companies I'm involved with is that they have 3 or 4 different segments of customer bases. Even when they're 5 or 10 million of ARR, I feel like 5-7 years ago was more often where you start off maybe at mid-market and then eventually layer on enterprise. Sounds like Looker also started with 2 almost from the start. How do you manage that? Do you feel like it was the right decision, the wrong decision? How do you think about that?
Yeah, well, it was totally the right decision because remember, one thing you're doing is a bunch of experimentation, right? See where the product's going to fit, the value prop. I will say that at the time we just called it inside and outside, so we didn't have SMB and enterprise, and we just designated a line. I think it was pretty funny. My background's almost all enterprise, so it's funny to think of this, but we used to call outside 500 employees and up. Yeah. So that was basically like, that's a more complex sales cycle. We'll point the inside. And then that has evolved. I mean, today in the US, we have 4 segments. We have SMB, mid-market, commercial, and enterprise. So it just evolves that way. Yeah. It also evolves by geography. We have slightly different in Europe. Okay. But yeah, it was a great way to start, inside and outside. Inside and outside.
That sounds good. What else? We talk about kind of conventional wisdoms. We were talking about this on the phone last week. What are some of the other conventional wisdoms that you guys challenged that turned out to go sort of your way, whether it's hiring or segmentation or within the product or sales cycle? What would some of those things be?
Well, I guess, the fun one here is that the really amazing thing that all of you who are in different size companies is I would tell you to try and question everything that you think worked at the last company, the time before, and start with a blank canvas, a new lens. Now, I fell trapped right away into it. So our sales motion was get a demo discovery call, close for the free trial. And I'm like coming in going, this is nuts. This is never going to scale, right? And so for the first 30 days, I was like, well, we're killing that whole thing right away. Well, it turned out every one of you are in different markets, different competitors. Most of the markets I'd been at had your typical 3 to 4 in the upper right-hand magic quadrant. The BI space is there's like 25 plus viable competitors that your buyer can buy. And everybody is saying the same thing on their website. Self-service BI, actionable data discovery, flexible, fast, so you could implement it faster than Cognos, business objects, MicroStrategy. So for us, the competitive advantage was actually to get the product into trial.
Yep.
And it turned out that we would have over a 50% close rate if we got it into trial. So within 30, 60 days, I did a complete 180, and I would actually get upset with salespeople if they did not put it into trial. Yeah. And it had a couple other benefits. It had, it would let us actually prove the value of the solution, because we'd be doing a trial on their live database, right? It would actually help us in the price negotiation, right? Because we could do a little bit of value-based selling. The other unconventional thing I was going to highlight was just that, once again, coming from enterprise, I kind of came in going like, in fact, Frank was even saying, hey, we need to build an enterprise business at the beginning. Unconventional thinking was, it turned out that we had such a vibrant business selling to companies with 50 employees, 100 employees, 500, 1,000, that you don't have to go right for that enterprise business. I mean, we got to a point where there was a day where I said, we can build a $100 million AR business without even going enterprise. Now, we totally have a great enterprise business, 5 of the Fortune 10, and as I mentioned, we went parallel paths from the start, but don't think that you have to do that or that you have to pivot, all that kind of stuff.
Yep, makes a ton of sense. And you guys are headquartered in Santa Cruz, right? So that's a little bit unconventional. What was that like from a hiring perspective? Or did you open up offices almost immediately in San Francisco? Did you have the inside sales or the SDR folks in Utah or something? Like, what did you guys do to navigate that, if anything?
Yeah, so Santa Cruz was actually a pretty good advantage at first. There's a good set of, I mean, I think Jen would know this, there must be, 30,000 people that commute over every day, over 17, coming this way. I live in Redwood City, so going the other way, there's nobody going the other way at those times of the day, right? Yeah. So it was really easy to build an inside sales team. It turned out that a super seasoned VMware inside salesperson manager who lived in Santa Cruz found me within the first week that I was there, and I'm like, Tim, I don't actually need a manager yet. But he put him on hold for a little bit, and lo and behold, he was in the second batch of salespeople that we hired in April. So it was good there. The 2 outside guys were your more typical, they'd work from home offices, in New York and in Menlo Park, come into Santa Cruz. And then it was a little bit till we actually got to having a San Francisco office from a sales standpoint.
Yeah.
But now we've got SDRs, customer success, sales in San Francisco, hubs in New York, London, et cetera.
And you were talking about enterprise earlier. Talk to us about that growth, that evolution. I mean, clearly you started with those outside reps, but as you said, the bulk of your business for quite some time was more of the inside sales, maybe 50 to 500 employee type of businesses.
Yeah.
Once you started selling those Fortune 100 companies, what was that evolution like really across the board organizationally?
Yeah, so it's well, at least in the BI space, it's a way more complex, harder sale, right? They've got one of everything. They've got business objects, MicroStrategy or Cognos. They've got Tableau, Click, or something else. The really sad rumor is that most people still do their BI in Microsoft Excel, right? I mean, who's going to give up their Excel spreadsheet, right? So you've got this much more complex sale where you've got to come up with a sales strategy that's more of a flanking strategy. You don't want to go and rip and replace. So you find unique business cases. What's been a huge win for us is actually just drafting off the cloud database world. I mean, right now, it's like if you're a CIO of an enterprise company and you're still feeding money into Teradata and Cognos, you're in deep trouble and the like. So, two different selling processes kind of, in fact, we've matured to the place now where even at sales kickoff, we'll divide up a good portion of the 3 days into inside and outside. So we'll have complete tracks because clearly what they're talking about in terms of a flywheel machine on the inside team, boom, 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 is totally different than working the enterprise side. And so we divide that up.
So what, we invested in like January of 2015 and I'm pretty darn sure every single quarter since we invested you hit or beat plan. So were you sandbagging? Like how did you, I don't know how.
Sandbagging.
I know that's a small
Not sandbagging.
No, but just
over 100% growth.
I know.
No,
but talks about like forecasting. That's just that consistency. I think we have, a couple of companies. I feel like we have some great companies in our portfolio, but that's just hard to do, especially when you guys were so young and some of the enterprise sales are lumpy. You had a good, mid-market motion to give you that, to smoothen things out, but it's still just incredibly difficult to do that for 16 quarters.
Yeah, I will say this. I'm one of the few sales leaders who I'm not superstitious about sales and stuff like that. Totally superstitious about my kids on a ski slope, my sports teams, all of that stuff. But I just, so we've made 26 quarters in a row. And I'll come back to it a little bit later, but hiring, if you leave with one thing, hiring is your most important job, okay? Getting that right. And so I have an amazing, amazing management team. So relying on that for the accuracy of the forecasting is really important. But I'll give you a couple other tips. So we being an analytics company, God, Jen knows, we have every freaking which way to look at stuff. And so we absolutely have all the top of funnel metrics and right now where we are at the quarter, what are we, third week, board meetings next week, we have enough pipeline coverage and all the stages and everything. I call that the top-down forecast, but I will tell everybody, I don't care how big, I've worked at Oracle, I've worked at HP, I don't care how big you get, you gotta have bottoms-up forecasting. So what I call the bottoms-up forecast is we just went through our 2-week cycle where we did all the QBRs, quarterly business reviews, where sales reps come in with their SEs, with their alliance person, with their PS person, make their commit, and then I rely on the sales management layer to kind of figure out what is really forecast, what's strong upside, what's upside, and we're very religious about that. We take a weekly and a monthly focus, not a quarterly focus. I have lived in companies where we could totally live till the 13th week of every quarter and make it, but that doesn't work over here. Identify the key steps in your sales process so that you can really know that, like, all right, this should be in forecast. Couple other things. We played a lot with incentives on linearity. At a certain stage in our evolution, we spiffed getting 100K ARR deals. We don't do that anymore because it's way more commonplace, right? So we would spiff the inside team on creating pipeline in the quarter and closing it in the quarter, right? So, and then all kinds of fun stuff too. We would do like, we would pit San Francisco against London, against New York, not really against each other because they could all win, but we would have like these stretch goals that if the whole team wins, they got a super fun night out, a party,
Nice.
you know, all that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
So, oh, and last thing, and everyone's involved in deals. So this is not about just sales. We like to get the SE's point of view. We like to get the PS point of view. I know we just had, looking at Jen here, we just had the whole territory development marketing team and all of these QBRs, alliances, and then executives that are involved in all the sales cycles.
It's awesome.